And so just to introduce, I guess, a little bit about the business and the background and how we got here. We've been going for almost 6 years now. And really the genesis of the business, I guess, is that most Australians love property. I don't need to tell you that. You already know it. If you look at the sort of tax stats, you've kind of got 1 in 5 people who are claiming tax are actually claiming rental income on their tax. So there's a really high percentage of Australians who participate in property ownership and property management. But the thing that happens when you own a property as an investor and you think of yourself as an entrepreneur, or you think of yourself as someone who's sort of owning and managing a business that you're looking to get a return on your investment, is often you don't have a lot of control over some elements of that investment, which might come down to the expense line. And so people traditionally have gone out, and depending on where in the country you are, you're sort of spending your 5 to 10% per year on a property manager. And I think a lot of our customers, certainly, or a lot of people in this country, would happily tell you at a barbecue on the weekend or at a regular dinner event that perhaps their experience with an agent recently was not quite what they expected. And whether that's related to trust or simple cost or simple, poor delivery, I think there's plenty of stories to go around about people who are not quite happy with that service. What we've gone and done over the last couple of years is actually built out a platform specifically for landlords, where they have an investment or a rental property and they can actually do everything that they'd expect a traditional real estate agent to do for them. They can do through the platform. And rather than, as I said, that 5 to 10% basis that they're specifically going to be spending on their management and their expense line, they can sort of do everything for more like 1 to 2%. And we charge fixed and flat fees. So it's not actually a percentage. And in fact, if your rental income is way higher, that percentage is going to go down. But what it means is you're able to control a lot of the expense, and therefore you can drive a much higher return on your investment, which for most people is why they do this, right? Why am I investing in a property? Well, I want to get an outcome. So what we see in sort of absolute terms is that translates to sort of $2,000, sometimes $2,500 a year in savings. If you look at that over the lifetime of your property, obviously that's a pretty substantial figure. If you look at that over multiple properties that you own, it's even more substantial. And I know, particularly for the broker community and those of you who are dealing with your customers, if you were to say to someone that you could look at, a 50 basis points or a 0.5% discount on their mortgage rate, people will sort of perk up and get pretty excited. And of course, depending on your loan size, that 2 or 2.5K a year that they'd save from their property management fees actually translates into the same sort of thing. So there is a really easy lever to drive here, as interest rates potentially or more likely seem to be going up. There is a way to actually control some level or offset some level of that increase with property management and with a platform like RentBetter. So I just want to talk for 1 more minute before I jump into what the actual product is and how it works. But the thing that we've seen, and the reason why I'm here today, and the reason why we've started, if you like, a referral program and speaking to brokers more specifically is, as I mentioned, over the last couple of years, we've obviously built out the platform. We've built a pretty large and loyal customer base across the country. We get what I describe every day as a lot of love mail from customers. We're a product that saves people money and they're pretty happy with the experience. So people are usually pretty positive towards us as a result of what they get out of the platform. But as we've sort of grown, and we've grown about 250% in terms of our subscriber base or our property on platform over the last 12 months. And as we've grown, what we've seen more and more is obviously new customers coming to us. And that segment of customers that's come to us is actually those people who'll say, I'm just checking out your platform. I'll settle on my property in 6 or 8 weeks and I'll be back. And of course, we've often thought, well, that's just a sort of distraction or a deferral of the discussion. We'll never see them again. But sure enough, they settle on their property and, they're the kind of person who's either investing in their first property, but they already own one that they live in, or it's their second investment, or they've just, I guess, if you like, they're in a life stage where they're sort of late 30s or to late 40s, where you might expect they're too busy to actually take on the management. But what we're actually finding is that they're a little bit more assertive and in control of their investments, where I think it's just the changing nature of the time, right? Consumers are a bit more interested in self-management online. They're a bit more interested in technology. And as they find things that work and that they can use to deliver what they otherwise were paying a middleman, they'll take that on more and more. So we're certainly seeing a growth in people who are telling us that that they're about to settle on their property and they're searching for an investment. And so I guess from our perspective, what came about was, well, who's the person that's speaking to them at the time that they're in their decision-making process about their investment? Well, obviously it's the mortgage broker. So from our perspective, we've come out with a referral program that hopefully is a way for us to communicate with the mortgage brokers who are having the conversation about their investment. They're interested in what we're doing, and what we'd love to do is give you a way to obviously have that conversation with them earlier and of course be rewarded for that. In terms of what the product does is we've got two core services, right? The first is to help people find a tenant, and the second is to help them manage their property. When it comes to finding a tenant, you obviously want the maximum exposure for your property. So a user can come onto our site or onto our platform. They can enter the details of their property and create an ad that goes out to realestate.com.au, Domain, rent.com.au, so the major portals to get the maximum amount of exposure. All the inquiries and applications are done online, so you'll get pretty comprehensive detail about people who are interested. You can then run a tenant check through Equifax. You can create your lease agreement with the touch of a button, and then you and your tenant can actually sign that lease agreement electronically through the platform. If you needed to create a condition report, again, it's an electronic form. You set it up through the platform. One of the things that people have found a pain in the ass over time is actually managing that process. And because, again, it's a digital signature through the platform, it's all there and it's all automated workflow. Once your tenant's signed up, again, we offer a few different payment options. So they can actually pay by credit card, which a lot of tenants who are either using the credit card as a way to manage cash flow or just simply hunting for points find a really beneficial way to pay. And actually, from the landlord's perspective, it's a really great way to, if you like, offset some of the credit risk that you have with your tenant, because they've got obviously a credit provider behind them helping to pay rent. All payments are captured in a ledger, are receipted. So there's actually tracking for that. When it comes to things like expenses, again, the landlord can enter everything, or everything can be tracked in the system. In terms of maintenance, same sort of thing. Tenant can raise job and request. Landlord's got the ability to get providers through the platform or use their own. And then all of that fills a end of year statement, which in fact is in real time. So it's an anytime statement. And what we're slowly doing at the moment is adding third-party providers to the platform. So I myself am an example of this, where obviously I like to do everything myself. I like to be in control, and I've found a way to manage everything through the platform. But there are times where I'm either traveling, less so in recent times, but I can be traveling, or I'm just simply in a period where I can't go and do the condition report or the inspection, and I want to book a professional or a third party to go in and do that. And we're slowly opening up those services. So right now you can actually book for someone to go and do the entry and exit reports. But we'll be adding more around open houses and depreciation tax schedules, and basically all the services that one needs, but in an unbundled and controlled way. So you as the landlord are still in control through the system. You can book any job that you need when you need to, but you're able to do that at your own choice and your own expense, rather than going out and saying, oh, I'm just going to pay someone 10% a year and not really be in control of what's going on there. So what we've recently done, and through Finance and Coffee in particular, launched our referral program as of, I think 2 months ago now. And so if you were to go onto the RentBetter site, rentbetter.com.au, you can actually scroll to the bottom where you'll see that there's a Become a Partner button. And you can actually register as a partner with our platform, and you'll get a unique link and a unique code. And I guess similar to the way, Dean, that you just showed us that page for I think it was Moving Hub, you can do pretty much the same sort of thing. You'll register as a partner. You can either register your customers directly for a referral, or you can send them your link. And when they come through the platform, everything they do will be basically attributed back to you. And so there's a reward or a commission structure attached to that. So that's in a nutshell. I've tried to keep it down to 10 minutes. Hopefully I've done that. But that's the RentBetter platform. That's what we're doing. As I said before, we've sort of had a tremendous growth spurt over the last 12 months with 250+% property and subscriber growth. We're really keen to obviously deal more and more with brokers who are speaking to those investors earlier in their journey. So I'll just pause there and open up to any questions that anyone may have.
There's a question in the chat, Jeremy. What about VCAT?
Sure. So we see two things, and that's a really great question. We've actually got something that will come up in the next little while around mediation as a solution directly through the platform. But what we often get as feedback, and positive feedback from our customers, is that there tends to be a tendency to end up at tribunal on the basis that something's gone wrong for long enough and can't be resolved. And so, the classic example of that is someone doesn't pay their rent and it goes sort of into arrears, and you end up in this cycle of more and more arrears. And that's often related to the back office process in the agency, where sometimes there's a bookkeeper that comes in once a month and they're actually reconciling everything and telling the front line, hey, you got to go chase this arrears. But often that's sort of too late and there's too much of a hole to get out of. Because the system's in real time, and if a payment fails, it'll tell you immediately, we're actually finding our customers giving us the feedback that they'll see that there's an issue immediately and they can respond and take action. So even if it ends up being sort of, if you like, an honourable discharge earlier in the process, the landlord's got the information to take action. And so we actually see this as a way to avoid some of those more difficult or challenging situations where ideally you don't want to be going to tribunal, because it's a lose-lose for everyone.
Yeah, I'll just probably add to that as well. I mean, I think for most landlords, I mean, for me in particular, the only thing that I really care about is that my rent's been paid on time. Sorry, that's just the timer there. So, while landlords do have that in the back of their minds about, potential taking tenants to tribunals and so forth, it's really, am I getting my rent paid on time? I had an issue with my own, property manager, where not only did I have to chase my own rent 5 times from my tenant, but then I got charged the I think it was like a $5 sundry fee because I had to adjust the statement. This is how much rent I got paid, right? And that's ridiculous. It's me telling them, but then I get charged for the purpose of it. So I cracked it, and and that's the end of it. So just quickly, I'll just ask one more question before we jump over to Toby, being mindful on time as well. What about property inspections? Does the landlord do it themselves?
Yeah, so there's 2 forms of inspections. And as I mentioned before, right now the landlord would do those intro ones. We see a lot of landlords who'll basically say to their current tenant, can you open the door and let the new tenant have a look? But at the moment, we, for the main inspection or open house, in fact, it is done by the landlord, but we've just, as I mentioned, finalized commercial arrangements with a partner who can do those inspections, and they'll slowly get to a place where they'll do those open houses. So for a specific fee, you can actually book each of those. And then on the referral fee in the commercial structure, I just saw another question. I'll just address that very quickly. Our sort of most common product that we see people purchase is where they'll sort of do a bundle because they need to find a tenant and also manage their property. And so the way that works is it's $149 up front and then $25 a month ongoing. So the commercial structure is that there's an upfront for a successful client or a successful conversion, there's an upfront payment of $40 as a referral back to the broker, and then there's an ongoing trail that will sit as it's not something that we're expecting you to retire on, but ultimately it should add a nice book of business to you. And so, yes, I can see one more question. I'll just answer it quickly. But yes, the ads go through real estate domain and rent.com.au.
I'm just going to add to that as well. I mean, if you can kind of think about it, most of the time when you do an investment loan for your clients, right? Your clients are just going to be lazy, and they will choose the real estate company that sold them the property to look after their investment loan. It's almost like money for nothing for the real estate agencies, right? And most of the time they do a shit job at it anyway, which is why a business like yours is has started up to disrupt this.
Absolutely. And look, one of the things we get again is a bit of feedback from different customers is that, the tenant feedback, and if any of you are renters or have been recently, you know that there's very few places in life, and excuse my language, but you'll basically pay 20 or 30K a year in rent and get treated like shit by someone. Like that's basically what ends up happening in that experience. And our landlords will often tell us that the response back to us is that, in fact, if you consider that tenant is more like your customer, and that you and tenant are interacting because you believe that they deserve to be treated well, so they'll look after your asset, you'll look after them, then the whole tone of the relationship changes. And the intention around sort of, if you like, delivering a service that you're expecting to get paid for. And quite frankly, a lot of property management, it's not that it's rocket science, it's very, very heavily process driven. And if you can automate some of those steps, which we've done through the platform, then a lot of the sort of uncertainty around it is removed. And it's simply, this is what happens next. So we've certainly seen that a lot of people And I hate to sort of leverage on the Airbnb example, but it's a perfect one for us because it's kind of the same thing that we're doing. It's just that we're in long term and we're a little bit more localized. But, people are willing to do that sort of stuff when the experience is positive and when it makes sense. You can, make more, you can get a higher return and get more income out of it. You can take away some of the friction and the expense and get a bit more control. And I think much like self-managed super funds over time, you saw people sort of just skyrocket the number of people that jumped into an SMSF simply because they could get more control out of it and they thought they were going to get a better return. And, property tends to be a slightly less frequently transacted asset, but it's the same sort of concept.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. And I'll just end it with that, Jeremy, that for brokers on the call or listening onto this later on, just think of it this way. It's called a rent roll. And this is the type of business or revenue that RentBetter is going to allow you to chip away at and then build a separate type of trailing type of commission for your business, right? So you're going to get trail for the loan that you write and a bit of trail for this as well, if it goes through. I think we've covered it and there's no more questions. So Jeremy, thank you so much for taking time to join us today.